Wow. Design. It's a magical unicorn with infinite superpowers. It engages all our senses and makes us feel alive. But what is design? And who is it for? Design is everywhere, from paper clips to rocket ships. Design can reconnect us with nature. Design can be humble. Design can embrace questionable taste. Design can bring healing. Design can be a legacy. Not only is design for everyone, it's essential in improving our lives. And if you take a bit of time to really see design, it will change the way you see the world. Hi, my name's Dana, and I'm a designer and editor, among other things. I look at a lot of design and I research it every single day. I love design. I am obsessed with design. But things haven't always been this way. I was born in Yugoslavia, a country that no longer exists. When I was 14, my family and I escaped the war in Bosnia. We spent a year in Serbia, followed by living in Denmark for 2 years as refugees. You might think that my time in Denmark, a country that's known for its design, is where I started to groom my sensibilities, but unfortunately this is not the case. Even though during our time there, my family and I were safe and all our basic needs were met, refugee life is no joke. My epiphany came later. I came to Australia when I was 17 and I was desperate to get qualified in something, anything, as fast as possible so that I could just get on with my life and contribute to my family's recovery. I managed to enroll in architectural drafting because I have good penmanship and I kind of like to draw. And this followed with a degree in interior architecture. Most people will come into this profession by being interested in design, but for me, it was a path that unfolded out of necessity. I felt like an outsider for so many years. I really struggled to grasp ideas that were discussed in university at architecture theory and in all of the professional writing at the time. Sure, my English kind of sucked back then, but I was just basically really intimidated by this complex language in which architecture and design were portrayed. So design just simply felt unrelatable to me. It wasn't until a few years later when I started to commit to a lot of personal research and I discovered the likes of Dutch collective Droog, and my relationship with design slowly began to shift. Droog introduced wit and humour I hadn't yet seen. For example, this seat by Eugene Bay is a fallen tree trunk with bronze chair backs. But the designer recognised it's completely absurd to sell and transport logs all over the place when they're locally available. So only the chair backs are for sale. Another major turning point came for me when I returned to Copenhagen exactly 20 years after I left the country as a 17-year-old refugee. Only this time, I was deeply immersed in the world of design. Design has been ingrained in Danish culture since the 50s, and many of their design icons you see here and many others are globally recognised and still very much sought after today. From the time they're children, Danes are encouraged to think differently and to innovate. And design thinking today shows up not just in architecture and other design professions, but also in their politics, policy making and infrastructure projects too. My return to Copenhagen felt as though I was there for the very first time. I could really see good design all around me, and it started from the moment I got off the plane. I could hear design, I could feel it, I could touch it, I could smell it. I was in freaking heaven. I had another major realization during this trip though. It's understandable how I was previously unable to recognize the icons that this city is saturated in. But I also never saw how truly beautiful Copenhagen was in general. My previous state of mind shut this part of me off. I was simply unable to engage with the beauty all around me. I just didn't have the capacity for it. I spoke to my mum after about this and she said, well, we were miserable back then. When one is in survival mode, it can be difficult for beauty to sometimes reach us. seeing beauty is such a gift. And being able to see it is also a privilege. And with privilege comes responsibility. Good design is often hidden in tiny little details or in the complex process of bringing a project to life. Without first-hand experience, it's really difficult to understand the enormous value that architects and designers bring to the table. And this is why most people simply don't understand the true power of design. Some might dismiss design as fluff or think of it as expensive or elitist or just, not their thing. I think of design as food. It's essential. And a girl's got to eat, right? Similar to food, design is available at different price points and in different formats. For example, as DIY prepackaged solutions or fully prepared for you at cafes or fine dining restaurants and everywhere in between. You can have an amazing or an average meal at every price point, and design is exactly the same. These days, we're also quite well informed about the provenance of our food. And why should design be any different? If we wish to know that our produce is organic or our meat ethically grown, shouldn't we also know where our building products come from and how they're later disposed of, or how or where our chair's made? Of course, we can't always know the answers. This is not possible, but the curiosity will lead us to eventually consume and seek more good design that's sustainable, that's good for us and good for the planet. Whether we think about it or not, everybody engages with design through their daily choices. Useful objects make our lives more convenient by providing real-life solutions. But design becomes good or great when there's an element of vision or poetry that we connect with. Imagine looking at this mirror every day. This mundane interaction of you just simply checking yourself out could become a bit more like a hot date with an art installation. So much better. In this village home in Spain, the architects transformed a compact backyard with a concrete platform that snakes around existing plants. It's such a simple and playful domestic landscape that elevates the ordinary. Connecting with design in line with our personal values will eventually lead us to seek objects and spaces that speak to us. Our experience and our expectation begins to shift. And this is how we expand and deepen our relationship with design. This approach is also far more rewarding than copying some look or somebody else's style, because design is not a style or a trend or, some sofa or some shiny object you saw on Instagram. Design is a relationship that develops over a lifetime. It's a process, and it responds to much broader issues, and including our own values and our goals. Well-designed objects, spaces, and buildings that we inhabit become the things that we hang on to, and they become part of our identity. Rapid image culture is one of the most significant challenges design faces today. We are drowning in content, and this content is often served to us by algorithms that perpetuate even more of the same. We're looking, but we often cannot see. With so many things competing for our attention, being intentional with how we engage with design through content has never been more critical. While an image is a really powerful tool to communicate design concepts, when a design gets reduced to an image, we can only ever assess it through its aesthetic value. But this is limiting, and it's also really irresponsible. While aesthetics and beauty are important because they make design desirable, good design is more than an image, and it will take into account much broader issues that can't fit into a picture. Things like sustainability, innovation, social impact, response to brief and budget, and this list is virtually endless. When a designer looks at an image, more often than not, they'll be able to perceive its many layers, and this is because they know how to look past the aesthetic or the styling. And if you become a little bit more curious and take a bit of time to engage with images differently, you'll start to see design differently too. Let's look at some projects together. When transforming this French farmhouse, which was completely dilapidated, Collective Encore architects were faced with a double whammy: a reduced budget and a totally crumbling structure. They went on to preserve the spirit of the building through minimal intervention. And they also retained 50% outdoor spaces, which accommodate not just people, but also other living things like birds and flowers and trees. Design can reconnect us with nature. For Australian architect Andrew Power, proportion and arrangement are powerful forces of design that can elevate even the simplest of ideas. In this modest home in Taree in regional New South Wales, he uses empty spaces, distances between rooms, vistas and symmetry to create a really elegant home that punches well above its weight. Design can be humble. Marcante Testa give this home in Italy a new identity without erasing the past. They embrace existing elements deemed tacky or plain ugly, and without judging their aesthetic value. And in doing so, they create a space that is another layer in this home's unique story, and they manage to capture this sense of joyful nostalgia and contemporary living. Design can embrace questionable taste. In this clinic in Copenhagen that deals with death and grief head-on, key concepts like hope, healing, and unexpected interplay of design manifest in a space that feels totally immersive. Tableau worked with avant-garde artists and designers to assemble a space that nudges patrons to delve deeper into their emotions in this sanctuary designed for reflection, nourishment, and healing. Design can bring healing. Designed in 1956, this lounge chair is a landmark in the world of design. This is a luxury item for a reason. Its pioneering use of material, handcrafted quality, and comfort levels are legendary. It's also one of the most copied designs available from several retailers in Australia as cheap replicas. But here's the thing, a direct copy of good design is not good design. While replicas might look kind of similar or sometimes even the same as the originals, they will always fall short on quality, comfort, and longevity, not to mention the ethics. Replicas are disposable items that end up in landfill, and they come at a much higher cost for our planet. And on the other hand, authentic design pieces have the potential to become cherished heirlooms for generations to come. Design can be a legacy. Design. It's such a loaded word, and it can mean so many things. It's an iterative process of layering where every facet brings meaning. Design can't be described as an aesthetic or style or easily understood through an image. Design is to be experienced and lived with. Inviting design into your everyday, like a friend, and engaging with it consciously will transform the way you see and experience the world. And it may just change your life. Thank you.